everything. Before every breakthrough, there is a moment of truth. A moment when you realize that wishing won't move you forward, hoping won't bring change, and waiting won't save you. Everything. Progress doesn't happen by accident. Growth doesn't show up uninvited. Your life will only evolve in the direction of the plans you consciously build. Everything. This audiobook is your wake-up call, a reminder that every dream, no matter how big or small, demands structure, intention, and strategy. If you're tired of drifting, everything, tired of starting over, tired of watching others advance while you stay stuck, this is where everything shifts. Because once you understand that no plan means no progress, everything, you unlock the power to design your future instead of stumbling into it. Let's begin. Everything. There's a moment in every person's life when they finally admit a truth they've been running from. Wanting something is not the same as working for it. And dreaming, on its own, everything, has never changed a single life. It's comforting to imagine a better future, to picture yourself winning, living freely, achieving the things that keep you awake at night. Everything. But the comfort of dreaming is also the trap, because dreams feel productive, they feel like progress, they feel like movement. Everything. Yet they are only imagined victories. And imagination without direction becomes the most dangerous illusion of all, the illusion that you're doing something, when in reality, everything. Nothing has moved. Most people don't fail because of a lack of desire. They fail because they never take the time to build clarity. They confuse emotion with execution. Everything. Motivation with discipline, and inspiration with a strategy. And if you've ever wondered why you keep getting stuck in the same place year after year, this is probably why. Everything. It's not that you're incapable. It's not that you're unlucky. It's not even that you're unmotivated. Everything. It's simply that you've been trying to build your future on hope alone, and hope, without a plan, collapses under the weight of reality every single time. Everything. Think about how often you've told yourself, this year will be different. How many times you've promised that you'd finally take control of your health, your finances, your habits, everything. Your career, your relationships, and maybe at the beginning you did feel like a different version of yourself. Maybe you were excited, fired up, ready for change. Everything. You felt the surge of motivation. You felt unstoppable. But then days passed, the excitement faded, life reminded you of its noise, and slowly, silently, everything. Your dream slipped back into the same drawer you always hide it in. You didn't quit because you lacked ambition. You quit because you lacked clarity. Everything. And clarity isn't inspiring at first. It's not glamorous. It doesn't give you the dopamine hit that vision boards and motivational videos offer. Everything. Clarity forces you to sit down with yourself and define exactly what you want, why you want it, and how you will get it. It demands responsibility. It demands structure. And for many people, everything, responsibility feels scary. Structure feels stiff. But without them, there is no growth, no evolution, no transformation. Imagine someone standing in front of an open field. Everything. They look out and say, I want to build a beautiful home here. They can picture it perfectly. The rooms, the lighting, the furniture, the life they'll live inside it. Everything. They walk through that imaginary house every night before they fall asleep. But every morning they wake up and realize the land is still empty. Because a dream is not a blueprint. Everything. A vision is not a set of instructions, and no matter how deeply they desire that house, nothing will rise from the ground until a plan exists. Life works the exact same way. Everything. Clarity is the blueprint, planning is the foundation, and execution is the construction. Without these three pieces, everything. You are simply standing in the same empty field, imagining the life you want but never building it. And before you think this is just theory, everything, consider the people who seem to move forward effortlessly. They're not more gifted than you. They're not more talented. They're not more deserving. What they are is clear. Everything. They know what they want, and they know exactly what steps they need to take to get there. Their clarity creates momentum, and their momentum creates results. Every success story, everything, no matter how big, begins with a simple moment of clarity, a decision about where they're going. There's a reason fitness journeys fail. A reason businesses never get off the ground. Everything. A reason habits don't stick. It's not because the goals were too big. It's because the direction was too vague. I want to get healthy is not a plan. Everything. I want to start a business is not a plan. I want to be successful is not a plan. These are dreams. Powerful dreams. Everything. Meaningful dreams. But dreams that die the moment life throws a distraction your way. A plan, on the other hand, is specific. It assigns responsibilities. It gives deadlines. Everything. It anticipates challenges. It defines what success looks like and what must be done daily to create it. A plan removes the guesswork. And when guesswork disappears, everything. Progress becomes measurable, disciplined, and real. I once knew someone who spent years saying they wanted to become financially independent. They read books, watched videos, everything. Daydreamed constantly. They were inspired every week but transformed in none. And then one day, after another year of being stuck, they sat down and wrote out their exact plan, a budget, everything. A saving strategy, an investment schedule, daily financial habits. Within a year, they had made more progress than in the previous 10 combined. Not because they became smarter, everything. Not because they earned more, but because the moment they created clarity, their actions finally had direction, their steps had purpose, and progress became unavoidable, everything. Desire without clarity is like running in the dark. You're moving, but you're not moving toward anything. And eventually, you get tired, confused, and discouraged. But clarity, everything. Clarity turns on the lights. Suddenly you can see the path. You can see the obstacles. You can see where you need to go. You can see what needs to change. And once you can see everything, you can choose. A lot of people fear clarity because it comes with a harsh truth. Once you know what you must do, you can no longer pretend you're stuck because of fate. Everything. Clarity forces you to face the fact that progress is your responsibility, that your future is your responsibility, that your habits, decisions, routines, everything, and actions are shaping your life every single day, not your dreams. Think about how different your life would look if you woke up every morning with a plan instead of a wish. Everything. If you stopped leaving your future up to chance. If you stopped hoping things would magically change and instead began designing the next version of yourself with intention. Everything. Clarity is not complicated. It's simply asking yourself questions you've avoided for years. What exactly do I want? What does success look like for me? Why do I want it? Everything. What steps must I take? What sacrifices does this require? What daily habits align with this goal? Who do I need to become in order to achieve it? Everything. These questions strip away fantasy and reveal reality. They turn your dream into something you can hold, study, and act upon. And the moment you answer them honestly, everything, you step into a new level of ownership, the level where progress is no longer optional. The truth is, motivation will come and go. Some days you'll feel unstoppable, everything. And other days you'll feel like everything is impossible. But a clear plan doesn't care about how you feel. A plan anchors you when emotions waver, everything. A plan keeps you steady when distractions pull at you. A plan becomes the silent force that pushes you forward, even on the days your mind wants to quit. You might not realize it, everything. But clarity is also a form of freedom. When you know what you want and how to get it, you stop wasting time on things that don't matter. You stop saying yes to people who drain you, everything. You stop chasing goals that aren't yours. You stop living reactively. You start living deliberately. Your life begins to align. And when alignment appears, progress accelerates. Everything. If you've been drifting, if you've been stuck, if you've been confusing effort with direction, this is your turning point. Because now you know the truth: dreams without plans die. Everything. They fade quietly, slowly, painfully. They turn into regret. But dreams supported by clarity, dreams backed by structure, those dreams transform. They rebuild your identity. Everything. They reshape your possibilities. They rebuild your life from the inside out. You don't need more motivation. You don't need more inspiration. You don't need another new year, new month, everything, new Monday. What you need is clarity. Real, practical, honest clarity. The kind that forces you to admit what you've been avoiding and commit to what you've been delaying. Everything. You were not born to circle the same frustrations forever. Everything. You were not meant to live inside the same cycle of almost. You have the potential to create an extraordinary life. But potential only becomes power when paired with a plan. Everything. And right now, in this moment, you are standing in the open field of your life. The question is no longer whether you can dream. The question is whether you will build. Everything. When you picture your future, the life you want, the person you're becoming, the results you're chasing, it often begins as a feeling, a spark. Everything. An image in your mind that pulls you forward. But here's the challenge: almost no one talks about a vision stays a dream until you learn how to translate it into something you can build. Everything. Not imagine, not hope for, build. And building requires more than passion. It requires intention, strategy, and the courage to shape your ideas into a structure you can actually follow. Everything. Think about anyone who has ever achieved something meaningful. Athletes don't wake up champions by accident. Entrepreneurs don't stumble into thriving businesses. Everything. Writers don't somehow find their way to a finished book. Every great accomplishment you admire has a blueprint behind it. A deliberate plan designed with care, clarity, everything, and direction. And yet, most people stop at the dreaming phase and never step into the building phase. They feel the desire, but they never outline the steps. They imagine the end, everything, but they never map the path. Today, you change that. Imagine you're standing in front of an empty plot of land. Everything. You know you want to build a home, your dream home, but all you have is the image in your mind. You can picture the windows, the rooms, the colors, the feeling of walking through it. Everything. But nothing will ever rise from that ground unless you create the blueprint. If you skip that part, what happens? Random pieces get placed together with no alignment. No structure, everything, no stability, and eventually it collapses. Not because the dream wasn't beautiful, but because the plan wasn't there. Your life works the same way. Your goals work the same way. Everything. Your future works the same way. A blueprint is what transforms an idea into a roadmap. It turns abstract hope into measurable direction. Instead of saying, I want to get healthier, everything, the blueprint says, I will walk 30 minutes a day, drink more water, and follow a structure that fits my lifestyle. Instead of saying, I want to start a business, the blueprint says, everything. I will research my market, build my first product, and commit 2 hours a day to the process. The blueprint doesn't care if you feel motivated. It doesn't need emotion. It needs clarity, everything. And clarity unlocks confidence. There's a moment everyone experiences when they start creating a plan, the feeling of overwhelm. You see the big picture and you're tempted to think, everything. Where do I even begin? But beginning isn't the hard part. Beginning is simply choosing one point in the journey and stepping into it. Everything. What makes planning powerful is breaking down the big vision into steps small enough that your mind stops panicking and starts acting. Everything. One of the simplest ways to do this is to reverse engineer your goal. Start at the end. Stand mentally in the place where your goal is already achieved. Ask yourself, how did I get here? Everything. What would have needed to happen first, and before that, and before that? When you walk your success backward, the path forward becomes obvious. Athletes use this. CEOs use this. Everything. Even artists use this. They don't just leap into the future, they decode it. Take the story of a man who dreamed of running a marathon. He wasn't athletic. He wasn't fit. In fact, everything. The idea of running a single mile felt overwhelming, but instead of letting the dream intimidate him, he built a blueprint. Everything. Week 1 wasn't about running miles. It was about walking more than he usually did. Week 2 added short jogs. Week 3 focused on breathing. Week 4 increased distance slightly. Everything. The plan wasn't glamorous, but it was structured, measurable, and real. And step by step, the impossible became possible. Not because he dreamed harder, but because he planned smarter. Everything. That's what you're capable of. Now think about your own goals. The ones sitting quietly in your mind, waiting for you to finally give them form. You might feel like you're not ready. Everything. You might think you need more confidence, more resources, more inspiration. But the truth is, you don't need more motivation. You need a method, a system, everything. A way to organize your energy so your effort actually produces results. When you look at people who stay stuck for years, it's rarely because they lack potential. Everything. It's because they live day to day without a structure guiding them towards something bigger. They wake up reacting instead of creating. And without a plan, everything. Life becomes a cycle of repeating the same days and expecting different outcomes. But when you make a plan, a real plan, everything changes. You wake up with purpose. Everything. You know what to do next. You stop second-guessing yourself. You stop feeling lost. And that feeling, that sense of direction, brings a level of confidence most people never experience. Everything. A powerful blueprint always includes 3 things: direction, definition, and discipline. Direction is where you're going. Definition is what the steps look like. Everything. Discipline is the commitment to follow through. If any of those pieces are missing, the structure weakens. Too many people rely only on direction. I want something better. Everything. But without definition, that desire floats. Without discipline, the steps never get executed. So start by defining your goal so clearly that you can describe it in one sentence. Not vague. Everything. Not poetic. Simple and exact. Then define the first measurable steps. Not all the steps, just the next ones. The beginning is always small, and it's supposed to be everything. That's how you build momentum without drowning in complexity. And here's the part most people forget: your blueprint is allowed to evolve. It isn't a prison. It's a guide. Everything. If something isn't working, adjust it. If a step feels too big, break it down further. If new opportunities appear, integrate them. Everything. Flexibility doesn't mean you're unfocused. It means you're intelligent enough to adapt while still moving toward the same destination. Everything. Life rewards those who are willing to design their progress, not just desire it. Think back to the last time you failed at something, not because you lacked talent, everything, but because you lacked structure. Maybe you tried to change a habit, start a project, get consistent with something important, but after a few days, life got busy, you got distracted, everything, and everything fell apart. It wasn't because you weren't good enough. It was because you didn't have a system to support you when motivation ran out. Everything. A plan protects you from your own inconsistency. It guides you on the days when you don't feel like trying and carries you through the moments when discipline feels difficult. Everything. Imagine waking up knowing exactly what you're working toward. Imagine feeling calm instead of overwhelmed. Everything. Imagine looking at your day and seeing a clear set of actions that directly lead to your goals. That is the power of a blueprint. Everything. It doesn't just organize your tasks, it organizes your mind. And when your mind is organized, your life becomes unstoppable. You deserve to feel that kind of certainty. Everything. You deserve to feel capable, focused, and clear. You deserve to step into a version of yourself that doesn't wait for things to happen. You make them happen. Everything. You create the structure that leads to your success. You become the architect of your life. The world is full of people wishing for change. But you're creating it. Everything. You're turning vision into action. You're building the blueprint that will carry you forward. And from this moment on, every step you take will be guided by intention, purpose, everything, and direction. Your ideas are no longer floating in your mind. They are stepping stones on a path you are actively designing. And that is where real progress begins. When life gets loud, everything. Discipline becomes your quiet superpower. It's the force that keeps you grounded when everything around you is pushing, pulling, distracting, everything, and demanding more than you feel you have to give. People often think success belongs to the most motivated, the most inspired, or the most gifted. But the truth is much simpler. Everything. Success belongs to the most consistent. To the ones who show up, not just when it feels good, but especially when it doesn't. And that is where discipline steps in. Not as punishment, everything. Not as pressure, but as the anchor that keeps you steady in the middle of your own storm. Think about your own life for a moment. Everything. Think about how many times you started something with excitement, fired up with all the motivation in the world. It felt easy at first, maybe even fun. You woke up early, you made a plan, everything. You told yourself, this time I'm serious. And for a while you were, until life got loud. Someone in your family needed your attention, work got stressful. Your phone kept buzzing, everything. Your emotions dipped, and all that motivation you started with slowly faded. That's the moment most people quit. Not because they're weak, not because they're incapable, everything, but because they depended on feeling good instead of being grounded. Discipline is what carries you through the days when the noise of life tries to convince you to quit. Everything. It's the muscle that says, I will stay committed even when I don't feel like it. But discipline doesn't happen automatically, and it doesn't grow by accident. Everything. It grows through intentional practice, through small choices, through refusing to let drama, internal or external, dictate your direction. Everything. There's a story about a man who wanted to become a long-distance runner. Every morning, he set his alarm for 5 a.m., and every morning he told himself, everything. I'm going to do it this time. But when the alarm rang, he'd lie there thinking about how cold it was outside, how warm his bed felt, how tired he was, everything, and how life was already stressful enough. So he'd hit snooze. A week passed, then a month, then a year, and nothing changed. One day, a friend finally asked him, everything. What actually stops you? And the man answered, honestly, it's not the running, everything. It's the conversation in my head. That conversation, that mental drama, is the same thing that stops so many people. It's never the task itself. It's the thoughts around it, everything. It's the emotions attached to it. It's the fear of discomfort, the doubt that whispers, the distractions that feel urgent but aren't. You're not fighting the work, everything. You're fighting your own resistance to doing the work. Discipline is learning to move anyway, everything. One of the most powerful shifts you can make is recognizing that discipline isn't a feeling. It's a decision. If you wait to feel ready, you'll spend your whole life waiting, everything. You'll wait until you're less tired, until you're less stressed, until things calm down, until the timing is perfect. But here's the truth: life will never stop being loud. Everything. There will always be something pulling at your attention. There will always be drama in your environment, in your relationships, in your emotions, everything. Discipline is choosing to act even when the noise is there. Imagine you're walking through a busy marketplace. People shouting, music playing, everything. Conversations overlapping, a constant flood of sound. Now imagine you're on a mission to find one specific thing. If you let the noise control you, you'll wander, everything. You'll get distracted. You'll stop to look at everything except what you came for. But if you keep your eyes forward and your mind focused, the noise becomes background, not a barrier, everything. That's how discipline feels in real life. The noise doesn't disappear. You simply stop giving it the power to steer you away from your goal. We live in a world designed to distract us, everything. Your phone is built to capture your attention. Social media is engineered to keep your mind constantly jumping. Your surroundings are filled with conversations, problems, everything, and urgencies that don't actually matter to your long-term growth. And if you don't take control, life will pull you in 1,000 directions, leaving you exhausted and unfulfilled, everything. That's why consistent people aren't just disciplined in their actions. They're disciplined in managing their environment. They create boundaries. They reduce noise, everything. They build routines that protect their goals instead of leaving them exposed to random chaos. A woman I once coached wanted to write a book. She had the idea, the passion, everything, the talent, everything except consistency. Every time she sat down to write, something would interrupt her. A notification, a phone call, a sudden urge to clean, everything. An emotional dip that made her say, "I'll do it later when I'm in a better mood." One day, she decided to do something different. She turned her phone off, closed the door, everything. Set a 30-minute timer and promised herself one thing: no matter what I feel, I will not stop until the timer ends. That small decision changed everything. Because in those 30 minutes, everything, she discovered that the drama wasn't in her life. It was in her mind. The distractions weren't stronger than her. She had just been giving them more importance than they deserved, everything. If you can learn to control your environment for even a short amount of time each day, you'll be shocked at how much progress you can make, everything. Discipline grows in the moments when you choose focus over comfort, action over avoidance, intention over impulse. And speaking of impulses, everything. One of the biggest enemies of discipline is emotional reactivity, that instant tendency to respond to feelings as if they are commands. You feel tired, so you stop. You feel overwhelmed, everything, so you avoid. You feel bored, so you abandon the task. But feelings are not instructions. Feelings are temporary waves passing through you, everything. Discipline is choosing to act according to your goals, not your moods. When you master this, you become unshakable. Think of your emotions like weather, everything. Some days are sunny and you're full of energy. Other days are stormy and heavy. But imagine if you took a walk only when the weather was perfect. You'd barely walk at all. Instead, everything. You dress for the weather. You prepare, you adapt, and you go anyway. That's discipline, showing up regardless of the emotional climate, everything. Another powerful part of staying consistent is recognizing your self-sabotaging patterns. Every person has them. Maybe you procrastinate. Maybe you overthink, everything. Maybe you tell yourself you'll start fresh on Monday. Maybe you convince yourself small efforts don't matter, everything. Or maybe you get caught in the trap of perfection, telling yourself you need the perfect plan, the perfect timing, the perfect conditions. But perfection is just a fancy disguise for fear, everything. It keeps you planning instead of performing. Discipline is choosing progress over perfection. It's choosing to take the next step even if it's small, even if it's imperfect, everything, even if you're unsure. Because consistency doesn't come from giant leaps. It comes from steady steps repeated over time, everything. A man building a brick wall doesn't obsess over the entire wall. He focuses on laying one brick as perfectly as he can, then the next, and eventually the wall stands tall, everything. Consistency works the same way. You don't transform your life in one day. You transform it through countless tiny moments where you could have given up but didn't. People often ask, everything. How do I stay disciplined when I'm overwhelmed? The answer isn't to power through with force. It's to simplify. Reduce the task. Shorten the time. Everything. Make the first step so small your mind can't reject it. Instead of working for an hour, start with 10 minutes. Instead of committing to a full workout. Everything. Commit to putting on your shoes and stepping outside. The moment you begin, momentum follows, and momentum is the secret weapon of disciplined people. Everything. You don't need to feel strong to start. You just need to start, and strength will find you along the way. Another key to discipline is protecting your energy. Everything. Not everything deserves your attention. Not every problem is yours to solve. Not every piece of drama requires your emotional investment. The more you guard your mental space, everything, the easier it becomes to remain consistent. When you stop chasing every distraction, stop reacting to every opinion, stop absorbing every bit of negativity, everything, you create room for focus, and focus fuels discipline. Remember, this discipline is not about being perfect. It's about being persistent. It's about showing up with intention, everything. Even on days when life feels chaotic, it's about making choices that align with who you want to become, not who you've been, everything. It's about refusing to let temporary emotions dictate permanent outcomes. And here's the most empowering part: discipline is built, not inherited. It's a skill, not a personality trait. Everything. Anyone can strengthen it. Anyone can train it. Anyone, including you, can become the kind of person who stays committed no matter how loud life gets. The more you practice everything, the easier it becomes. The more you choose discipline over drama, the more grounded, steady, and unstoppable you feel. Because the noise around you may never fade completely, everything. But your ability to stay focused, consistent, and in control can grow stronger than the noise ever could. You've taken a step forward. You've set your plan in motion, everything. And yet something went wrong. Maybe a project fell apart, a goal slipped through your fingers, or a decision you thought was brilliant turned into a mistake. Everything. The sting of failure hits hard. It can feel like a personal indictment, a proof that you're not capable, not smart enough, not ready. But here's the truth. Failure is not the end. Everything. Failure is not a sign that you are weak or that your dreams are impossible. Failure is a teacher. It is raw, honest feedback that shows you what isn't working, and more importantly, everything, how to adjust. Imagine a child learning to ride a bike for the first time. They wobble, they fall, sometimes they scrape their knees, and yet the next day they climb back on the bike. Everything. They adjust their balance, they grip the handlebars differently, they push a little harder with their legs. Every fall is not a defeat, it is a lesson that informs the next attempt. Everything. Success doesn't come from avoiding failure, it comes from learning to fall smart, not hard. In life, this principle is exactly the same. Every setback, every missed opportunity, everything. Every plan that fails is a chance to refine, to sharpen, to evolve. The most successful people in the world are not those who have avoided mistakes. Everything. They are those who treat each failure as data, as insight, as a guidepost for the next move. They understand that the only real failure is quitting. Everything else is a step toward growth. Everything. Take Thomas Edison, for example. The story of his invention of the light bulb is legendary not because it happened overnight, but because he approached failure as a series of experiments. Everything. Thousands of attempts did not yield the result he wanted, and yet he didn't see them as defeats. He saw them as information. Everything. Each filament that didn't work taught him something about what might. He famously said, "I have not failed. Everything. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." That mindset, the ability to reinterpret failure, is exactly what separates progress from stagnation. Now, everything. Let's bring this closer to home, closer to your world. You might be pursuing a promotion at work and hit roadblocks you didn't anticipate. Everything. You might be building a business and find that clients aren't responding the way you thought they would. You might be trying to improve your health. Everything. Only to see the scale move backward instead of forward. In each case, it is tempting to see the setback as a verdict. Everything. This isn't for me. But if you shift your perspective and start asking the right questions, the story changes. Instead of asking, "Why did I fail?" ask, "What can this teach me?" Everything. What adjustment will make my plan stronger? Failing smart means pausing to reflect rather than panicking or punishing yourself. It means examining your approach objectively. Everything. What part of the plan was within your control? What wasn't? Were your expectations realistic? Did you overlook small signals that could have warned you? Everything. Were their patterns repeating themselves? This is the work that transforms setbacks into stepping stones. Let's talk about the emotional side of it, everything, because failing is rarely purely intellectual. Failure hits your confidence, your motivation, your sense of identity. It's normal to feel disappointment, frustration, even anger, everything. But here's the subtle shift: instead of letting those emotions derail you, use them as fuel. Channel the frustration into curiosity, everything. Let the disappointment sharpen your focus instead of dulling it. Remember, emotions are energy. They can be destructive if ignored, or they can be harnessed to propel you forward. Everything. A friend of mine once started a small online business. The launch was rough. Sales were minimal, the website crashed a few times, and marketing campaigns flopped. He could have given up everything. The failure could have defined him. But instead, he treated it like a puzzle. He gathered feedback from customers, analyzed data from his campaigns, and adjusted his strategy. Everything. He tested new approaches, iterated on his products, and improved his customer experience. Within 6 months, he not only recovered the losses but created a thriving business. Everything. What made the difference? He didn't view failure as final. He viewed it as information, and that shift in perspective changed everything. Failing smart also requires flexibility. Everything. A rigid plan that cannot bend in the face of reality is doomed to collapse. Sometimes the most successful adjustments are subtle, small tweaks rather than massive overhauls. Other times, everything. A complete pivot is necessary. The key is being willing to see the plan as a living document, something you can revise as you gain new insight. Everything. Rather than as a sacred script that must be followed at all costs. Here's a practical approach you can use whenever failure strikes. First, pause and breathe. Don't react impulsively. Everything. Then, write down exactly what happened, what the outcome was, and how it differed from your expectations. Third, identify the variables you can influence and those you cannot. Fourth, everything. Brainstorm alternatives and adjustments. Fifth, take action immediately on what you've learned. Don't let analysis paralyze you. This is failing smart in action: learning, adjusting, everything, and moving forward without losing momentum. There's also a courage factor involved. Failing smart isn't easy because it requires humility. Everything. You must admit that the plan you trusted wasn't perfect. You must acknowledge that you don't have all the answers. You must face the discomfort of stepping back, evaluating honestly, everything, and making changes. And yet, this is precisely where growth lives. On the edge of discomfort, in the moments when you refuse to let fear or pride keep you from refining your approach. Everything. Consider elite athletes. Their entire careers are built on this principle. A tennis player loses a match, studies the footage, adjusts their training, modifies their technique, everything, and comes back stronger. A runner misses a personal best, tweaks their strategy, and beats it next season. These people don't avoid failure. They embrace it as a teacher. And so can you. Everything. In your work, your relationships, your personal goals. Failing smart also builds resilience. Each adjustment, each correction, each restart strengthens your ability to handle uncertainty. Everything. Life will throw obstacles at you. That is inevitable. But if you approach failure as a tool rather than a trap, you develop a muscle that allows you to respond rather than react. Everything. To innovate rather than despair. You become someone who does not fear setbacks because you know they are part of the process. Finally, everything. Remember that failing smart doesn't just apply to large, obvious failures. It applies to the small, everyday missteps too. A missed deadline, a conversation that didn't go well, everything. An opportunity that slipped away. These are all opportunities to learn, adjust, and grow. Every little course correction compounds over time, everything, creating momentum that eventually makes your bigger goals attainable. So when you encounter failure, lean into it. Ask the tough questions. Listen to what it's telling you. Everything. Refine your approach, adjust your actions, and then move forward with the confidence that every misstep is simply a data point on your path to mastery. Failure is not your enemy. Everything. Fear of failure is. But if you approach it with intention, analysis, and courage, failure becomes one of your most powerful allies. You are capable of bouncing back. Everything. You are capable of turning setbacks into strategy. You are capable of building momentum out of what feels like defeat. Every failure, every mistake, everything. Every miscalculation is an invitation to rise smarter, stronger, and more prepared than before. And as you step forward, remember this: everything. Failing smart is not about avoiding pain or disappointment. It's about transforming them into insight, action, and unstoppable progress. You've come a long way, everything. But if you want to become truly unstoppable, you need to understand something most people never do. Progress isn't a straight line. It's a loop, a cycle, everything. A living system that grows stronger every time you feed it. And the magic of this system isn't in grand gestures or sudden bursts of energy. It's in the way planning, action, reflection, everything, and refinement work together, creating momentum that compounds over time until your results feel inevitable. Imagine a snowball rolling down a hill, starting small, gathering mass and speed, everything. And before you know it, nothing can stop it. That's the progress loop. And it starts with one simple, yet often overlooked truth. Every step you take toward your goals matters, everything. But only if you track it, learn from it, and use it to build the next step. Think about someone like Serena Williams. Everything. She didn't become a legend because she showed up on the court with raw talent alone. She meticulously planned her training, each day designed with intention. She acted, everything, hitting thousands of serves, running countless drills. She reflected, analyzing every swing, every match, every tiny adjustment. And then she refined, changing her technique, everything, tweaking her strategy, always learning, always improving. Every loop made her stronger, sharper, more unstoppable. And you can do the same thing, everything, even without the stadium lights or the trophies. The first part of the loop is planning, everything. Planning isn't just about writing down a to-do list or setting vague goals like, I want to be better. Real planning is specific. It's knowing exactly what you want to achieve, everything, by when, and how you're going to get there. It's the difference between saying, I want to get fit, and saying, I will train for 30 minutes every morning, everything. Focusing on strength on Mondays and Wednesdays, and cardio on Tuesdays and Thursdays. When you plan with this kind of clarity, you create a roadmap. And when you have a roadmap, everything, you stop wandering. You know where you're going, and your actions start to have meaning. Once you have a plan, the next step is action. This is where most people stumble. Everything. They plan endlessly but never act, or they act sporadically, fueled only by bursts of motivation that disappear within hours. Action doesn't need to be perfect. Everything. It doesn't need to be dramatic. What it needs to be is consistent. Small, daily steps toward your plan compound faster than occasional massive leaps. Everything. Think about someone learning a new skill, playing an instrument, speaking a language, mastering a craft, practicing 30 minutes a day, every day. Everything adds up faster than practicing 4 hours one day a week. Action is where your plan meets reality. It's where possibility transforms into progress. But action alone isn't enough. Everything. You also need reflection. Reflection is often uncomfortable because it forces you to confront what's not working. It's tempting to ignore mistakes, blame circumstances, everything, or convince yourself that tomorrow will be better. But reflection is your mirror. It shows you where you are, where you're falling short, and what's working. Everything. It can be as simple as taking 10 minutes at the end of the day to ask yourself, what did I do today that moved me closer to my goal? What didn't work, and why? What patterns am I noticing? Everything. When you reflect honestly, without excuses, you uncover the insights that separate stagnant effort from meaningful growth. The fourth part of the loop is refinement. Everything. This is where you take the lessons from reflection and use them to adjust your plan, your actions, and even your mindset. Everything. Refinement isn't failure. It's progress disguised as adaptation. Imagine a sculptor shaping a block of marble. Each chip, each adjustment brings the sculpture closer to perfection. Everything. Your refinement works the same way. Maybe you realize that your morning routine isn't sustainable, so you adjust your schedule. Everything. Maybe you see that a certain approach isn't producing results, so you try a new strategy. The point isn't to get it right the first time. The point is to get it better every time. Everything. When planning, action, reflection, and refinement are combined in a continuous loop, something remarkable happens. You start to move faster, make fewer mistakes, everything, and anticipate challenges before they arrive. You begin to feel unstoppable, not because luck is on your side, but because your system is everything. You are no longer a passive dreamer waiting for life to hand you results. You are an active architect of your future, creating momentum that feeds on itself. Everything. Consider the story of someone like Elon Musk. Whether you admire him or not, there's no denying the power of his process. He plans, he acts, he reflects, and he refines relentlessly. Everything. When SpaceX failed early rockets, he didn't quit. He analyzed every failure, adjusted, and launched again. When Tesla faced production nightmares, he learned, adapted, and pushed forward. Everything. The loop of progress turned setbacks into stepping stones, and today, those early failures are lessons that no one else could have learned but him. Everything. You don't need billions to apply the same principle. You need the willingness to act, observe, and improve over and over again. Even in everyday life, the loop works. Take fitness, everything, for example. You start with a plan 3 workouts a week. You act, showing up to the gym, moving your body, putting in the work. You reflect, everything. Your strength isn't improving as quickly as you hoped. You refine, you change your routine, increase your weights, adjust your nutrition. Each cycle, you get stronger, fitter, more capable. Everything. Over time, your consistency compounds into results that feel inevitable. The same loop applies to learning, to building a business, to developing relationships, to managing your finances. Everything. Here's the subtle, but powerful truth. Once you embrace this loop, progress becomes a habit, not an event. You don't wait for inspiration. Everything. You don't wait for motivation. You create a system that ensures forward motion, even on days you feel exhausted, unmotivated, or uncertain. The loop carries you, and as you keep turning it, everything, your confidence grows. You begin to trust yourself in a way you never have before, because you see firsthand what happens when you combine intention with action, insight with adjustment. Everything. You see results, you see momentum. And momentum, once it exists, is almost impossible to stop. This loop also teaches patience. Progress is rarely linear. Everything. Some loops will produce massive breakthroughs, others will feel like small, almost invisible steps. And yet, every loop counts. Every cycle is progress. The key is to keep turning the wheel. Everything. There's no shortcut. There's no magic trick. There's only the loop. Simple, consistent, unstoppable. If you want to apply this today, start small. Write down one meaningful goal. Everything, break it into actionable steps. Act. Reflect at the end of each day or week. Refine based on what you learn. Repeat. That's it. Start simple. Start imperfect. Start now. Everything. Because the longer you wait, the longer you postpone your own momentum. The loop doesn't wait for perfection. It waits for action. And here's the final, unspoken power of the loop. Everything. The more you use it, the more your mindset shifts. You stop fearing mistakes because mistakes are no longer failures, they're lessons. Everything. You stop fearing uncertainty because the loop teaches you to adapt. You stop fearing stagnation because the loop guarantees forward motion. And eventually, everything. You reach a place where you're not just chasing progress. You're creating it intentionally, daily, relentlessly. You've become unstoppable. Everything. Every time you engage in the loop, plan, act, reflect, refine, you reinforce your own power. You prove to yourself over and over that you are capable, resilient, everything, and capable of achieving more than you ever imagined. That feeling, that certainty, is what separates people who drift through life from people who create lives worth living. Everything. And once you feel it, once you harness it, nothing can stop you.